Hey everybody, welcome back. So I wanted to do a video about some of the systems or ideas I had while I've been going through this archetype theory craft session. And even it's come up when I've theory crafted some of the role-playing characters that we've done previously. So we're just going to jump right into it, a couple topics, and then I'll wrap it up. I'll try not to make it a long video, but I tend to ramble, so buckle up. So the first one is, all these theory crafting role playing characters that I have, we draw identity from not only their primary but their secondary class. We weigh heavily on the primary and we use the secondary as kind of the flavor on top to really help create a unique identity for the character. And then when we got into the archetype theory crafting, it was okay, how it's kind of the same thought. How do we make, for instance, a bow singer where a ranger and a bard meet? How do we make it feel more ranger than bard, so that when you go to where the bard meets the ranger, where bard is primary, you get a song warden? How do we make that one lean more on bard than ranger? So all of this is leading to the secondary class and its ability to augment the primary. My thought here is kind of twofold. One is, how much do we want it to augment the primary? If I have a lot of fun playing a ranger for whatever reason, and I go, you know what, I just die too much in solo content, I'm going to pick up tank. I don't want that to change my core playstyle because I enjoy playing a ranger. I don't suddenly want to be a frontliner. But how much of that tank do I want? Like, in that situation, am I just looking for the ability to be better in heavier armor or have access to heavier armor? Am I looking to get some defensive cooldowns? What am I looking for out of that? Now, the idea of being a sentinel is really cool in the grand scheme of things because that's one of 64 choices, in the entire game. And if I'm a ranger, I have 8 other choices. Well, 7 technically if I pick sentinel. So that's neat. But how much am I looking for that to impact? And I think that leads to the whole conversation that Steven had, where he said it's not 64 unique classes, it's 8 unique classes with 8 specializations. And I think that's one thing that I would like to have a conversation for. So this video is not going to be necessarily just my opinion, but it's going to be me trying to get you guys to tell me what you think, because we don't know, and I don't know. And Lord knows I'm not a professional. I mean, I have no fucking idea. I have no basis to stand on. This is merely the opinion of another bearded, even because I haven't shaved, neck-bearded MMORPG person who loves to play them and is excited for where this could be. So I would love for you guys to jump in the comments, just share what you think, thoughts, things like that, so that we can have a really cool conversation about it, and it will help develop my thoughts on it as well. Because I think what a lot of people miss nowadays is that having conversation with people that you agree with and don't agree with, or agree with 60% and they have a slightly different view, that's how you evolve your ideas. That's how you develop your thoughts. That's how you create a deeper understanding of the way you think about things, which then leads you to more intelligent conversations with more intelligent people who then develop each other again, and blah, 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 compounds, until you have a really deep understanding of where you are on a subject, maybe understanding deep in your understanding, like just knowing more about the subject, things like that. So that's what this video is trying to like jumpstart in the comments. So jump down there and comment on all this stuff. Let me know what you think. But how much am I looking for out of a secondary class? You know what I mean? Because if I take Ranger and I go to Cleric or Mage, Ranger again, some of the ones that we know about a little bit about their augment, like we know Cleric gives life and death augment. Is that all I want? Do I want 90% Ranger skills, maybe a little bit of self-healing, and then I can put life or death on my stuff? I know I came up with a cool resource idea that I really like for the Soul Bow, that intersection. I really would love that to be in there. If you haven't seen it, go back and check out the Ranger video. I put timestamps, look for Soul Bow. So it was just a really fun idea, and I think that would be really cool. But realistically, I don't know how much unique resources and things like that they're actually going to give the archetypes. Understandably so. I think we're kind of dooming ourselves thinking that there's 64 drastically different things. If they were all as different as the ideas I've come up with, not that they were my ideas, or that they would use my ideas, but if they are as different for each archetype as the one that I came up with, that'd probably take the game. I'd take the game another year or two on top of what they're already doing. I mean, I guess I would think so. So my question is, how much can we expect, or how much would we want out of a secondary? Let's say minimum base level. What would you be happy with base level? You know, understanding that if you're a ranger, you're a ranger. There's 8 classes, and these are just like little talent trees. Let's break them down, because to my knowledge and my what I'm getting, my impression, there we go, is that these are going to be more like talent trees in WoW, or specs. I guess that's better to say. They're going to be like specialization specs, where you get little different, slightly different abilities. You know, they take your passives and they weigh on different stats, or they just push your stats and your abilities in a way that rewards you for certain play, things like that. So if that's the case, you know, what's the base level we're looking for here? Am I looking for an ability or two, maybe an adjustment to some of my passives? You know, what am I looking for? Pardon me, I apologize. This smoothie is going down interesting. So, you know, what percentage of your character's identity do you want to be... sorry, I can't think of how to put this. What percentage of your character's identity do you want to be attributed to your secondary class? You know, hey, I'm a ranger. Or would you go, hey, I'm a bow singer? Oh, I'm a ranger, but I've got some bard in there because it adds this to my character. You know, how much? How little? So I think that's an interesting question. And the reason I bring it up, I know I'm more of a role-play person and a theory craft of the classes to help me make more role-playing characters. But the question really comes up is like, do I need to lean more on the primary class and just think of the secondary class as an afterthought? Is it going to be that impactful? I don't know. And that's why I'm posing the question to you, YouTube land. And I think that really leads right into a similar discussion, but slightly different, is the augment system. So your secondary class is going to augment your main class. So we don't necessarily have to dive into that, because I think that'll kind of come up with the first thing I brought up. But my question is, do you think you should be able to switch your augments quickly? And do you think, or how quickly do you think you should be able to change your secondary? So we know, obviously, when you pick ranger or fighter or whatever, you are a fighter or a ranger forever. That's that character. We know that. We're used to that. That's not a big deal. We know that you get a secondary class at level 25. And we also, I want to say no, I don't know where it's at. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where it's at, but we know that you should be able to switch your secondary class kind of every so often. You know, whether that's a day, a week, you know, once a week, once 2 weeks, month. You know, what is a good window? What do you think a good window is? You see, because I like the idea of, I may be a minority, I like my choices to carry weight. Now, in a game that could be kind of detrimental. Example, I decide as a ranger, I want to play a bow singer. And I'm having fun with it. Then I go into a couple dungeons and they're really tough, and we figure it out. That's like, oh, well, you and 2 of your friends are, you know, primary DPS, secondary support, and it's just not, their damage isn't quite there. If you went full DPS, with the 3 of you, we could clear this a little easier, and we could, you know, do some more content and exploring, and if we got jumped, blah, blah, blah. You know, and I'd be like, oh, you know what? That makes sense. Okay, let me figure out which DPS I want a secondary and see what we can do. You know, I don't necessarily want to have to switch, but I want to be able to do it. You know, I don't want it to be like, okay, you get once a month, and then I pick the wrong thing. Not in like I picked the worst spec, but it's like, oh, this will be fun. I'll pick this. Oh, well, I actually just ended up on this side of the map. Content got harder. Man, I wish I picked tank so I had a little more survivability while I did content. Oh, well, I'm fucked for a month. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really like that. So I don't know what a window would be. You know, do we want to do it per season? You know, and my thoughts on seasons, I'll just run through it real quick. was that they had, how did I do this? A half week ramp up. So the season was changing, let's say from winter to spring. There was like a half week of winter kind of melting into a week of spring coming to be in fruition, then a full week of spring, and then a half week of spring dying down, and then summer ramping up. So you end up with 2 weeks roughly. But like, do we say you get a secondary change once a season? Maybe once a Vera season, which would be like once every 2 weeks ish. Well, I think that's fair because I think that gives you some weight to your decision. But I mean, there'll be some consequences, but I think that's that's where I'm weird. Like, I like having a little bit of consequence. Oh shit, I made the wrong choice. Well, got about 8 days or whatever, 6 days till it resets. Well, I'll just make it work until then. And I understand where that can be frustrating for a lot of people. And honestly, people will say it's a great idea. We'll get in game. Enough people will be really mad about it, and then there'll be an outrage. So, I don't know. I already think Ashes is for a unique subset of gamers. I don't think it's going to be one of the ones that maybe hits really hard over all gamers everywhere. But maybe it does. I mean, we'll look at the popularity of Elden Ring with its difficulty, right? So, once a season maybe, and then once I can just say that that's what we land on, once every 2 weeks. Then, what about your augment? So, we know that with Mage, you can pick a different elemental school. You know, once I pick an augment, is that a day cooldown? I pick lightning, and I'm having all this fun with it. Well, then we find, oh, you know what? I just heard that the node hit a X level. This new dungeon opened up. It's higher level. It's going to have better gear. Let's go do it. We're like, yeah, let's go do it. Oh, it's a rock dungeon. I know I'm just using generic terms, but it's a dungeon that's primarily made of golems and things that are resistant to lightning. Oh, well, I augmented all of my abilities with lightning, so now I'm doing less damage. Well, that's cool. I did it yesterday or the day before. Okay, let me go switch over to something different. You know, okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem changing augments, and then having a 24-hour cooldown seems reasonable. Because you also don't necessarily want the gameplay that's like, hey, let's go do this dungeon. Cool, I'm going to switch to lightning augment. Okay, now we're going to go do this dungeon. Okay, cool, now I'm going to go switch to the fire augment. Okay, now we're going to, you know, and you're just constantly going back and forth and changing your augments and doing this, which, I don't know, thematically that doesn't make sense. From like a roleplay perspective, like if I pick to be a lightning mage, I just am. I got to figure a way to overcome things, or just be okay with it. In some situations, I won't do as much damage. But, you know, that's not going to work. Let's be real. You're paying a monthly subscription to enjoy a service, a video game that you want to have fun at, and if somebody tells you, like, hey, you made the wrong choice, you have to wait 24 hours to fix it. Or in the secondary class situation, you have to wait 2 weeks to fix it. You know, people are going to whine and cry. They just are. So my question is, for this little rant, is what do you think a good window for a secondary cooldown is? Like switching secondaries? Oh, how about this? Would you want to be able to switch secondaries? I think yes, wholeheartedly yes. I attribute it to being able to switch your specializations in WoW. I like there being a cooldown because I want consequences. But what about you? Do you think it should be a week, 2 weeks, a month? What do you think? I also think maybe if you don't use it in a month, maybe you get a cool little tome or something. And if you collect 4 or 5 tomes and then in a month you just have situations arise where you want to switch it, you can just pay a tome and do it. Maybe. I'm not sure. That might get ridiculous, and tomes might try to find their ways on the auction house and things like that. And that might be ridiculous. But anyway, what about a window for switching your secondary? What do you think? And then what about a cooldown for switching your augment in that secondary? I like a day. Maybe that's wrong. But I think it's enough to where it'll make you think about it, but it's not enough to where you have to live with the consequences for enough and miss content or something. All right, so then that leads into the next situation that came up with. So while I'm theory crafting some of these archetypes, I've said it a couple times, but I don't think I've expanded on it, is blocking. I believe that blocking should be active blocking. Believe it should be. It's a little strong. I would prefer it to be active blocking. Now, I think some of the classes could have a passive blocking where they will passively block an ability or two, depending on the archetype. They could just, I don't know if it would actually like be the animation of blocking as much as it just blocks the damage. However, I think it should primarily be active blocking. And I think there should be a baseline block mechanic. It doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to be crazy, just a nice, solid, basic block mechanic. Why is the RP guy talking about block mechanics? Because I think that they could then modify or adjust the blocking mechanic by archetype, by class, by archetype. Because, again, because I just apparently can't use any other word but because, I think that by doing that, they can take a basic block mechanic, make it a little more engaging, make it a little more fun, to be honest, and then use that as another tool to give classes and archetypes identity. I said that, I think, in the fighter one, or the rogue one, hey, if they block with 2 one-handed weapons, they have a little bit of a bonus to blocking, whatever that may translate to. Percentage, damage, if there's a blocking bar, maybe they don't get as much taken away. If they block this way. Now, if they block this way, maybe it's just normal. And then I said that the tank spec, like tank as a primary, maybe through all their specs, there's abilities and stuff that fill up said blocking bar, or refresh the blocking bar, or they don't suffer any loss in the blocking bar for the next 4 blocks, or they then can use the modifications or the changes to the blocking mechanism as a way to empower certain classes that really you want to push to the front line, I guess, and then really give identity to archetypes. For instance, if you have like a fighter archetype that gets bonuses for blocking with just a sword, no shield. Then you have one that gets benefits for blocking with a shield. Then you have one that gets benefits for blocking with a 2-handed weapon, or 2 one-handed weapons, or just 2 weapons in general. You see what I'm saying? And then if you roll that through the different classes and archetypes, now you kind of give a little extra identity to these archetypes just by building on top of your basic system, opposed to putting in a complex blocking system overlaid on everybody. Instead, you have a simple blocking system, and now you're adding things on top of it. You have a solid foundation. So I guess in my mind, it's something like, how do I put this? Simple. 1 + 1 is 2. Right? Slightly more complicated, multiplication. No, I don't even know where I was going with that. I don't think I have a good way to explain what I'm thinking. However, I just think that having the simple foundation that overlays everybody, easy, somebody who doesn't have a fucking idea how to code or balance a game or anything, seems like an easier idea is to have the easier or more simple mechanic overlaid on everything. Then each archetype or class, or let's take it to the mobs, certain mobs you can overlay with specified abilities or passives that give them benefits to block certain ways with certain weapon combinations, certain distances, or maybe blocking, like, let's say there's a tank aspect where the more you block, it builds up, when you block an attack before your next attack, you get a small bump in damage. But if you block 2 attacks, 3 attacks, 5 attacks, 10 attacks before your next damage, your damage goes up and up and up. And just a way to make tanks a little more viable damage-wise if they're always blocking and trying to dodge or whatever. But you see what I'm saying? Like, that way you can play with the block mechanic on an individual basis, giving identity to classes and archetypes while allowing you, as the studio, to kind of tweak and play and kind of have some fun with the block mechanic without doing it over the whole fucking game on everybody's character. Yeah. So that was kind of the idea that I had behind it. And I think that doing that would also allow you to tweak it more quickly, I would think, on a regular basis. Like, hey, block's working great. It works for everybody. Okay, this person's not blocking well at all. Let's go in there and turn some dials. Okay, a little up, little up. Okay, we're good. Turn these down. Okay, I think everybody's pretty much balanced. Hey, my rogue doesn't block as good as a fighter. That's not fair. It's totally fucking fair. You're rogue. He's fighter. Yeah, but we don't block as well as a tank. Yeah, but you do twice as much damage. Shut up. Like, can't have it all. And with active blocking, I feel like it makes combat more interactive. And that's a big thing that I want, especially in a game where I feel like it's really going to have the environment for more people to role play or more people to just really get into their character, into the gameplay. And if blocking is just static and not fun at all, everybody's just going to be dodge rolling everywhere, and then you're going to have a PvP battle with people where there's just like 10 people rolling in fucking circles around each other like it's Dark Souls until the one person messes their roll up and everybody goes, yeah, and then they die. So I want it to be interactive, and that's why when we theory craft these classes, when I'm talking about abilities or resource pools or things like that, I try to put weight on the player to execute things correctly, but I don't want them basically playing solitaire, where all their abilities are like buffs and things. Like, for instance, when I talked about the Charlatan, I said they would build bluff stacks, and I said they could do it like combo points. And then 5 bluff stacks, they do a cool rogue thing. And then I backed off of it because I said, okay, hold on, that's not interactive. If I get 5 combo points and you stun me, I still have 5 combo points, or bluff points in this scenario. Oh, you do this thing, you CC me this way. Okay, I still have them. Okay, I'm on CC, I still do my thing. While that's somewhat interactive, if I just built a shitload of bluff stacks on you, the opponent, then you had the ability to dodge the attack, block the attack, debuff, not debuff, what am I trying to say? Clear the debuff, or clear the stack some way, or, now you have more options to deal with me. And then if you deal with those, that opens me up more, because say you have to then spend your mana or your time or whatever, you're like, okay, I have so many bluff stacks, I don't really have a way to debuff them right now, it's on cooldown, so I'm going to have to dodge and block more so that they can't either connect with their quote-unquote finishing move or whatever, or I can't let them build more bluff stacks because once they get to a certain level, they'll be able to use a cool ability. Then you have to play different. And then when you play different, now I get to play different. I'm like, oh man, he went on the defensive now. So he's not counterattacking as much. Okay, I can be a little riskier with some stuff. And then you respond to that and blah, blah, blah. And then that's like an interactive, ever-evolving combat. Is that too much? Probably? Maybe? I don't know. That seems more fun to me, and if I get my ass kicked because somebody's just better at making decisions than me, then so be it. I just think I'd get more upset if a lot of the archetype abilities and things were like a game of solitaire, where I'm like, man, I'm playing a good game. Oh, but he got to his max bluff stacks, and he's going to kill me now, and I'm dead. You know what I mean? So I don't want that to be the situation. That's why I've always, when I'm going through the archetypes, you hear me like second guess myself or pause a lot, is because I'm trying to make sure that what I'm saying isn't so solitaire, and it leaves counterplay open. It leaves the ability to be interacted with. And while yes, that's frustrating as the person trying to do the thing, oh man, that sucks, I wish that was combo points because I can't ever get an ability off. Well, in that case, maybe I need to get better, or maybe I need to learn how to play around it, or maybe I need to learn I'm going to build my bluff stacks up to here. They're going to get worried and use a debuff. So I'm going to save some of my big bluff stacking stuff. All right, I'm building it. Okay, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to switch to this, attack-wise. Oh, they cleared them all. Okay, now let's, we know that that's got a relatively long cooldown. Okay, let's blow all our bluff stacks on them now. Boom, it's where I wanted it to be. Now I can play, and do more damage, or I can burst them. So I think that's a big point. What do you guys think? Would you prefer... Again, I just don't have a lot of... what am I trying to say? I don't have a lot of examples for it. So would you prefer like a combo point system? And not necessarily just for the Charlatan. This is just my way of trying to like encapsulate the idea so that it's easier to have a conversation about. Would you rather like a solitaire kind of system where you build resources and do things and it's up to them to either block, dodge, or get hit? And then they have to be reactive. They don't get to be proactive, and they don't really get to interact. They have to react to whatever I do. So, would you prefer something like that? Or would you prefer something where it's a lot more interactive, where, okay, if they're blocking in this system, you build your combo points on the opponent, right? You build stacks on the opponent, and when they get to certain stacks, you can do certain things. That way, it's more interactive. Like they can choose to debuff, or if they don't have a debuff, or they don't have one on they have one on cooldown, then they have to start dodging or blocking better. And then when they change their playstyle, you change your playstyle, and it just kind of bounces back and forth, and it comes out to a higher skill cap PvP. So I hope I got that across right. So would you prefer, more interactive where it's an evolving combat kind of deal, or less interactive where you get to do your thing and just kind of hope it's good enough? Another way to put it is the difference between playing Hearthstone and playing Magic: The Gathering. That might fly over a lot of people's heads. But Hearthstone, when it's your turn, it's your turn. There's very little the opponent can do on your turn. There's a couple cards that might do something, but most of the time it's just your turn. You do your thing. Then it's their turn and they do their thing. Then it's your turn and you react. So you're constantly reacting back and forth. There's still strategy. It can still be complex when you play a game like that. And then when you go to Magic: The Gathering, you play things on your turn. Perhaps you save resources so that you can interact on their turn. Some things can only be done on your turn. Some things can be done on their turn and your turn. And it creates a little more interaction. Not always. Trust me, I've played a lot of Magic. There's some combos and situations where you don't get to do a damn thing, and I understand that. This is just in general. I think it's just another way to encapsulate the idea I'm trying to get across is the difference between playing Hearthstone and playing Magic. Yes, I understand there are a lot of fucking differences, but I'm just honing down in on Hearthstone. You do all your stuff on your turn, then they take their turn. It goes back and forth that way. That's how I think of like a combo point. You build the resources on yourself, you do the stuff on yourself, and then you do a thing. Then they react to the thing, and you hope it's good enough, or they can't react well enough, and then they do their thing, and then you do your thing, and it goes back and forth like that. And then in Magic: The Gathering, you can do that, or you can do some stuff on your turn, save some resources to try to interrupt what they're trying to do, or throw off their plan, or just shut it down. And the trade-off is that you chose to do a little less on your turn to hopefully throw their turn off so that your next turn's bigger. Or, and then there's mind games of things you can do like, oh, did he not use all his resources, or they use all their resources so that they can interrupt me? Should I try to do this, or should I try to throw a fake so that they interrupt the fake and then I can do the main thing? And those are kind of the two varying schools of thought I have on combat. But I already said where I fall. I fall in the Magic: The Gathering, or the building stacks on other people. I fall in that camp. Let me know what you think, or if you have a way better analogy, I'm totally open to it because, like I said, I could not think of anything else. And then that just is pretty much the idea. Those have come up in I've only done 3 or 4 of the archetype videos, but those have come up at least 1, maybe 2 of those per video. So I just wanted to put one out and went over all of them. And then end with the idea of, I like role-playing characters. I like a character with identity. So if I choose to play a rogue bard, a charlatan, or a soul bow for ranger and cleric, or something random, what other archetype you want. If I choose to play it, and I play it for an extended period of time, I'm talking I go through hardships when I'm not the best, highs when I was actually the best spec for the situation, and everything in between. And I just stick with it because I just really enjoy that archetype, and it's exactly what I want my character to be, whether it's good or bad. So I was thinking, what if there was a system that rewarded you the longer you played an archetype? And I'm not talking about a day, a week, a month. Like maybe a month is the first one, but it's like a month, and then 3 months, and then 6 months, and then 9 months, and then a year, and then it goes to like 2 years. I know that seems dramatic, and it is. It doesn't have to be big, giant capstone, oh, well, you're never going to be as good as my Blade Dancer because I've always been a Blade Dancer, and I've been a Blade Dancer for over a year now. My DPS is 30% higher because of it. Now, I'm thinking maybe you could get cool cosmetics, cool things for your house, maybe cool effects for some of your abilities, maybe a title or two. Maybe you can get into, I don't know, if there's a combat place where fighters go. Primarily, I don't know if there'll be class trainers or anything like that, but your name goes on a wall under Blade Dancer because that character's been a Blade Dancer for over a year, and it will always be there. Even if you start switching after that, you'll always be under that year mark. There'll always be your character's name because you were, right there. So, I don't know, I thought it'd be neat. Something else they could do, primarily cosmetics and like little things for houses or decorations or maybe dyes or whatever for your armor or effects for weapons and abilities. Maybe it's something like that. But I thought it would be a cool thing. And again, that is just because I like Identity and I'm one of those guys who might make a specific archetype and just play it when I want to have fun and never change it because I just don't want to. Yeah, I understand that that's like, oh, but what about the people who are really competitive for PvE content or PvP content and they're always switching their secondary to better match, the situation? I'm sure there'll be plenty of rewards and pats on the back and things that they get for that. Oh, well, I switched this archetype 5 different archetypes over the last 2 weeks because now we are the first people to complete this dungeon. Well, you're the first people to complete the dungeon, or you're one of the few to have completed that dungeon, or I've got really cool equipment because I did the thing. Well, cool. I don't have that really cool equipment, but my name's on a board, and I got a cool pendant. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's another system that it just rewards different types of players. And I think that right now in gaming where everybody wants everything. I want everything. Oh, you got a reward for that? I'm going to go get it too. Oh, there's a thing. I'm going to go get that too. Oh, I've got it all now. It's like, it's just not how it works. I don't like it. Maybe I'm Crouch the old man, but I just don't like it. I like people being rewarded for playing how they want to play and continuing to play the way they want to play. If you spend, hell, I wouldn't mind if you got a cool color for your house or your housing or your, what are they called? Freehold, because you spent 1,000 hours in your freehold. I know that's dramatic, and I mean, it's just because I'm a dramatic person, and then somebody's like, oh, well, I want that color. That's not fair. Go spend 1,000 hours in your freehold. I don't wanna. Well, then fucking don't get the color. They wanted to, and they did it. They got it. It's rewarding people for playing the game they want to play, interacting with the world and the game the way they want to interact with, and giving them a little something. It doesn't have to be something dramatic. It doesn't have to be, something game-breaking or something that's really going to be the envy of everybody else, but walking into a freehold, let's say a tavern, and you walk in, and there's a mounted dragon head, or a mounted rare spawn mob, you're like, what is that? That's super cool. You're like, oh, I got it because I got to a level 4 tavern or whatever, and I've been a level 4 tavern for X amount of time, and I've spent X amount of hours in here or something like that. Wow, that's a lot. There's no way I'll ever do that. Yeah, well, I did, and I got that cool mount. Not a lot of people have it. Some people do, but not everybody. And you're like, what? That's fucking cool, dude. Good job. That's awesome. And for the player who did it, they got to play the game they wanted to. They got to interact with it, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I got a cool thing for it. Not, other people have it, but not everybody. Look, and everybody's like, wow, dude, good job. That's cool. And I think doing something like that for staying with an archetype for X amount of hours, I think would be cool. That's it. That's all I got. Those are my thoughts on some random shit that has come up while I've been doing the archetype videos. Let me know what you think below. Blow it up. Make long comments. I'll read them all. Luckily, I'm so small and tiny that there's only ever like 6 or 8 comments, so I read them all. I try to at least like them or respond to them if I have something slightly intelligent to say. So please start a conversation, guys. I love to talk about it, and I just hope we can develop our thoughts, and then we can have better conversations in the future. And by the time Ashes comes out, we'll be asking the right questions and be in the right mindset. Hey, thanks, guys, for watching another YouTube video. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm also on Twitter. Yeah, have a good day.